I woke up with a raging headache that was just pretty much split only onto the left side of my head. And it went all the way down into my shoulder.
Holly, how did you find Carnivore?
Oh, hi, Dave. Well, that's a loaded question. I kind of got backdoored into it. I first heard about Carnivore through a very circuitous route. It was about 2018 in the fall, and I was just looking for a distraction after work. I started a new position, was rather stressful, and I just needed a way to get out of my head and kind of step into fantasy life for a while. Since I got rid of my television, I actually just, I have TVs, but I cut off the cable probably about 12 years ago. So my go-to is always something on YouTube. And I started watching crib tours. And then that turned into tiny house tours. And that turned into little itty bitty apartment tours all over the world. And then that morphed into tiny houses on a chassis, which morphed into RV life, which then led me into van life. And I started watching videos of people who were just on a budget and kind of kitting out a fancy, expensive tent on wheels so that they can roam around the planet and do fun things. And I thought, well, that's just great because I'm stuck here in Pittsburgh, you know, and that's all right because I have a good life and I have a great career, but, you know, distractions and dreaming of the future, that's always something that's really fun to do. So through all of that, I ran across a little video which was called My Hillbilly Van Build by a beautiful woman. Her name is Sarah Trees. And she was doing a van tour of how she put together this really cool kitted out van through thrift store finds and old furniture. And I thought that was just like the most amazing thing I had seen in a long time. All right. Part of that video, she was talking about her diet. And she mentioned that she only eats meat. It's something that she's had to do pretty much her entire life and something she had to figure out on her own. So she's definitely a hardcore carnivore, but to her, it was just, hey, this is the way I live my life and I have to. And I thought that was the saddest thing I'd ever heard. Seriously, the saddest thing I ever heard, because with all of the amazing food choices out there and all of the naturopathic doctors talking about use this food to heal this issue and this one to help support you in that, and this one contains that antioxidant and this one is loaded with fiber, and just do all of these things and keep it all in a grid in your head and be perfect every day and you're just going to have a healthy life. It's just going to be easy and awesome. And I was never able to do that. So I saw that little video and I thought, wow, how sad, how interesting. And then I just completely disconnected and forgot until the pandemic and the shutdown and everything that went on globally and sort of the cultural shifts that we all lived through that. And part of that was bumping into controversies regarding Jordan Peterson. And since there's nothing more interesting than exploring 100 different points of view at the same time, I went down that rabbit hole, which eventually led me to the same thing that everybody else has popped into, which is Jordan Peterson and the 5-minute spot and the Joe Rogan talking about the 7 pounds a month for 7 months. And that was really inspirational. And then, of course, pops up Michaela Peterson's TED Talk, supposedly banned. I don't know. That's what the title said. And I thought, well, you know what? This is really interesting. This is amazing, but I never considered it again for myself. All right. Never. Now, during the entirety of all of this, my digestion is getting worse and worse and worse. But it happened so slowly and so insidiously, Dave, that it completely snuck up on me. And by the time I realized how dire it actually was, I was already in a hole. And that happened, I guess the culmination of that happened last summer when I started noticing a drastic shift in bowel habits. And, you know, if we reference the old Bristol scale, everything and then some. Never knowing what was going to come out next or when or how often. And I knew enough to basically talk myself down off of the ledge. Like, you know, let's not jump immediately to colon cancer. Okay. But it's hard not to go there when that's one of the chief symptoms of of colon cancer. I'm like, well, how that, I just had a colonoscopy like 3 years ago. Well, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, and that was fine. So, what's going on? So I thought, well, I'll adjust my diet. I'll keep researching. I'll look at other doctors online, and I'll furiously Google how to cure constipation, because see, the women in my family, we've always struggled with that. It's just a thing. And as we age, it seems to get incrementally worse until it's just this overarching problem that you're continuously dealing with. Can't believe I'm on YouTube talking about constipation and bowel habits, but it's what we do, right? Got to talk about pooping. So that was a really, really tough summer. I had serious measures that I would always engage in prior, let's see, what were my go-tos? V8 juice. V8 juice will just clean out everything. Oatmeal, especially if you throw a few raisins in it, right? Oatmeal with raisins and V8 juice. Like, your blessed event is coming. Yogi detox tea with all of the bitter herbs in it. Perfection. Now, start stacking these things up over time. Extra fiber, extra water, raw veggies, lots of beans, no grains. And instead of straightening out my digestion slowly over time, I was making it worse. A lot worse. Now, because no story is ever simple and easy. Along with this, a parallel story at the same time was the weight loss journey. It was, let's see, when I was young, I was little. I'm 5'1" 3/4" to be exact, but 5'2" sounds acceptable, and I haven't lost any inches yet, so we're gonna stick with 5'2"-ish. All right. When I graduated from high school, I was 101 pounds soaking wet. Like, every blood drive I was not allowed to participate in because I was underweight and I was always slightly anemic. The day I graduated from college, I think I was 106 pounds. Excuse me. Soaking wet. When I found out, like about a month before I found out I was pregnant with twins, when I was 28 years old, I was 117 pounds. And I was thinking, gee, I should go on a diet and lose 5 or 6 pounds. I'm feeling a little pouchy around the middle, and my size 6s are getting tight. Well, that didn't happen. I topped out at 197 pounds with 2 perfectly formed babies and a huge placenta and a long recovery. And that was all worth it because I gave birth to 2 beautiful, healthy babies that were about as full term as you can get at 36 weeks. So that was great. However, I ruined my figure and I never got it back. I never got it back. I did do Weight Watchers a number of years later. And at that point, I think I'd started Weight Watchers around the 170s, and I ended Weight Watchers around the high 130s. Probably like 138 was the lowest that I had gone. Now, this was a good 15, 16 years ago. I was much more active. I was younger, and I had not yet bumped into another major health condition that made me go in another hard turn. All right. So I was relatively healthy for me, which is saying a lot. I was teaching in the public school, teaching high school. So I was on my feet, running around, dealing with students, worked in a large building, contact with many, many people. So I was getting exercise on the job. My daughters and I were also involved in karate lessons. We took Tang Soo Do. We did that for a couple of years. I loved it. They hated it. Eventually, we had to quit. But during that time, I was also doing the Weight Watchers. And so I was quite physically fit. And it was a much different 138. Well, as the story goes, you meet a great person and you fall in love, and you drink too much wine, and you eat too many carbs, and you go out to too many restaurants, and then it just kind of like it creeps up. Okay, creeps up. And then the relationship is gone, and you're left like fat again, going, now what do I do? So it was about around that time that, since I'm a trendsetter, I had to get COVID before it had a name. And that really scared me because I didn't know what it was. I went to MedExpress And they said, oh, I said, aren't you going to test me for the flu? I'm within the first 24 hours. Give me that Tamiflu stuff so I can be sick for 2 days and get back to work and, go back to life again. They gave me that before and it was great and it worked. And MedExpress said to me, we don't know what this is, but we're not testing anybody because you're going to be sick and it's worse than the flu and you're going to be sick for longer than the flu. And I didn't believe them because they were going to write me for a longer time off of work and I had to go back a second time. Something crashed in me at that moment, Dave. And it wasn't until I did get COVID in December of 19. And by the time we got to June or July of 2020, I felt like I was starting to get a little bit of my energy back. So when I went back to work after being off for 2.5, almost 3 weeks in early January, I was not able to work a full 5-day week until the shutdown in mid-March, where I found out about it right at the end of the school day. And I sat in my car in the parking lot and I cried tears of relief because I didn't know how I was going to get through the rest of my work year with trying to shuffle days. It was crazy with no real solid reason as to why I just can't do life. Like literally I had 4 days worth of work energy per week and that was it. So I was dealing with that and the shutdown happened and I know all kinds of wonderful things happened during that time. I know some great success stories. I know some awesome horror stories as well. And I kind of fell into the category of overworked and underplayed. And at the end of the workday, I would find myself absolutely wired and tired. Sitting at my kitchen table, working and realizing, oh, my 30-minute lunch is almost gone. I'm 2 feet away from the refrigerator and I don't have enough time to make myself food. So at the end of the day, you're in this intense environment and you just want to disconnect. And I was too physically exhausted, even though all I did was sit in front of a computer screen and work for 9 hours, but I was tired. And so part of me wanted to get up and go and get out. And another part of me was like, I don't have any energy to do anything. And I remember so many days, every one of them, laying on my bed, staring at my ceiling, just vibrating and shaking, going, what am I going to do with myself? And these are kind of the after effects of what getting sick did to me, on top of not already having a healthy immune system because I'm overweight. I had mold exposure in my 20s, which I dealt with, which is another entire separate story of healing journey, which enabled me to eventually get my life back after almost a decade. But at the same time, with these other issues with the COVID and the COVID vaccines and the post-COVID and the recovery and the lack of energy and being overweight, then losing the weight and having the gastritis on top of all of that. And I just got to a point where I was unable to function. So I know that's a lot of everything that's going on. And that's a kind of a weird loop just to lay the foundation for how I got back into the weight loss. So pandemic, wired and tired, sitting around. I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I need some kind of accomplishment through the pandemic. I have to be able to say I accomplished something. So I decided to grow my gray in. And that was my major accomplishment during the pandemic. I survived and I grew all of my hair out. Early gray runs in my family. So by the time you're 25, you're on your way to salt and pepper. There's nothing you can do about it. And all of those years of using the toxic hair dyes, I just decided, well, this is a good time because I can hide the growth and still look good because no one can see me from the back. And I thought, well, this is now or never. And yeah, that was it. Eating sludge, not paying any attention to my diet. Coming out of all of that in the spring of 2022, and I find myself at my doctor's office and he's writing me a referral to the Gastric Clinic. Okay, the Gastric Clinic. So I go to the Gastric Clinic And I realized before I'm even out the door from that appointment that they have absolutely nothing cutting edge to offer me. I don't know what I was expecting, Dave, but I think in my fantasy world, I was really expecting them to say, hey, we're going to test all of your metabolic markers and we're going to find out exactly what's causing your obesity. And we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to biohack you. And girl, you are in good hands. And that really wasn't what I got. What I got instead was a parade of very nice people coming through the door one after another with their little pitch. And I remember speaking to the dietitian because she was showing me the plan. And I said, you know, my brain's not working really well. Do you have just like a diet plan, like eat this shit on Monday and this stuff on Tuesday and these other things on Wednesday? And she said, no, we don't do that. So she was explaining the whole how you do your plate with, you know, a quarter of your meat and your potato or your other starch and half of your veggies and all of that. I'm like, okay, I got that. I did the Weight Watchers. I have the old stuff. I can resurrect it. I'm not keen on it because I was hungry all the time. You know, there was just, or you're just constantly eating a volume of food, or you're eating the low point foods to the point where you have to consume this huge quantity of food to get all your calories in, or you're going to screw up your metabolism in the other way. And you need 3 of this and 4 of that and 2 of these. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. So finally, the last thing that they were able to offer were classes where you would come in once a month and have a little class, and then you would see the doctor. And I realized at the very end that the main point for seeing the doctor was so you could get the shot, you know, the weekly shot or the monthly shot, which they had offered to me that day on the spot without knowing any of my history. Nothing. And so I'm still sitting there as a patient realizing I'm canceling every appointment that this lady's making for me. I'm not coming back here. I don't know what I'm going to do, but there has to be something else out there. You know, just in that, Dave, just in that point of, I'm just going to cry right now. Just in that point of desperation, like there has to be something else out there, but I didn't know what that was. And I still hadn't really considered carnivore. Okay. So I start losing weight on, no, that was 2021. I'm sorry. That was 2021 when I went to the obesity clinic. So fast forward to 2022 and I decide, all right, I'm really going to buckle down on the weight loss. I'm just going to cut the calories. I'm going to cut the starches. I'm going to cut the grains and breads because I'm not having good luck with even digesting those to begin with. Because remember, all along through the weight loss journey, my digestion is beginning to deteriorate. And the more I concentrate on the weight loss, the more I'm triggering these other symptoms. Now, what I didn't know then, which I do know now, is that sometimes, since, you know, when you're going from such a diet of extreme low fat, and now you start to introduce any kind of a change, all right? So the very first change that I had introduced was cutting out the sugary drinks, as you know, more than what I had already cut them, cutting out the grains, cutting out the starches, and just eating as clean and pure and as many raw veggies as I could possibly decide that I could like in a day. That was doing okay in the beginning. And then I got to a point where all of a sudden those old gastric issues that might rear their ugly head every couple of years, and then it went to every couple of 6 months, and then every 2 months, 3 months, all of a sudden, by November of 2022, that turned chronic. And I had an episode. Now, looking back on it, it sounds exactly like an ulcer. It probably presents like an ulcer. I don't think the modern medical community uses that word anymore because that never came up for me when I ended up hospitalized. So a rational human being would probably say, well, gee, it's been 2 weeks and I'm still ill and I can't eat any food. And then I fast for 3 or 4 days and then I reintroduce food. And even though it's gentle food, it's still messing me up. And what's going on? But I'm not always rational. And although by this time I'm retired from the school district and working a cheesy, easy retail job, I mean, it was just, it was fun and I had contact with people and the work was not difficult. So I didn't mind, doing that work 3 or 4 days a week, but it was a long shift. It was like a 12-hour shift. So you're out of the house for like 14, 15 hours. And I started to forget to take my thyroid pill, which was another gnarly health issue that I don't really want to go into all of the details, but suffice it to say that about for 8 years in my mid 30s to mid 40s, I suffered with hyperthyroidism. And every time my thyroid would spike, Dave, it would take 3 to 4 months of, I can't even pronounce the pill they gave me, which is difficult on the liver also, to bring those levels back down. And finally, after my third spike, I'd get everything level. I'd be fine for a couple of years, year and a half, 2, 3 years, and then something else would hit again. So I finally asked my endocrinologist, like, what is causing this? And he said either a sudden incident of stress, which can be anything from a minor panic of forgetting where you put your car keys, or you almost get into a fender bender and your adrenaline spikes. It can be as minor as that, or any other stressful life event, or continued daily long-term stress, which was like my normal, right? Because I didn't stand a chance. It was going to happen again. And I said, are there any other options? And the option that was presented to me was the radioactive iodine, which I took and bottomed out and got level. And I thought everything was hunky-dory, except for the fact that they've never been able to get my T3 and T4 ratio balanced. So, and I again, since I'm on this healing journey, I'm able to kind of go back in time and put the pieces together and see that although I was solving one problem, I caused another. And since hindsight is 2020, I can see how that's caused a deterioration in my ability to sustain energy and to really heal and live my best life. So I get to January and I cry to my PCP. And I walk out of there with a referral to a gastroenterologist and blood work. All right. So get the blood work done. Nothing telltale too much on that. And I try to get an appointment with a gastroenterologist, but I can't get one in my town unless I want to drive out of town. Not too far. No big deal. Healthy me. I can do it. I was so sick by that time that even driving 35 minutes north of me to get a sooner appointment, I just was not going to do it. So I had that appointment for March 15th, and I made an appointment with a naturopath.
Sorry, this is 2022?
This is 2023 now. This was early 2023. So I bottomed out in November of 2022 with not really being able to digest food anymore, but not really making the connection that I'm not able to digest food anymore, if that makes any sense. I was in an extreme state of, I don't even want to call it denial, because I think denial is a step up from where I was, Dave. Just completely blind to the gravity of what I was living through, because it's just like, it's just one more thing, it's just one more thing in a lifetime of thing after thing after thing. And so, okay, you try not to panic. So I didn't make it to March 15th, and I didn't make it to the naturopathic appointment on March 1st, although I did keep it and I did make it. Okay. I bottomed out and I ended up in the hospital in mid-February for 4 days, and they at least were able to do a bunch of testing and figure out like what was wrong. So an inflamed esophagus, high anal hernia, inflammation in the stomach, severe gastritis, what else? Bleeding hemorrhoids, diverticulose pockets, and here's a proton pump inhibitor. Call this doctor and make an appointment so you can swallow a camera and we can take pictures of your small intestine. And I was like, Yeah, not with my background of chemical and environmental sensitivities. I don't think I want to swallow a foreign body and have that, traverse its way through my system for a couple of days. God only knows what else it's going to cause along the way. So I opted not to do that. And with the help of the naturopath, which I'm still under her care, I was able to get on a series of herbal supplements and so forth to help calm down all of that inflammation. She was able to order and still orders for me tests to really hack and get to the bottom of what is the underlying issue that's really driving all of this symptomology that messed me up in the first place. And I already know the answer to that. I know it was a mold exposure back in my 20s when I was living overseas. And I had no choice but to live where I was living because that was the housing provided. I had no choice but to work in the room where I was assigned. And of course, it was the basement. And that just kind of set my immune system up for disaster. And by the time it was 2 years later, I was in the throes of multiple chemical sensitivities. Thought I got all of that straightened out with some provocation neutralization, a very fringe kind of homeopathic remedy that the clinic I went to no longer exists. That helped me to get my life back. But at the same time, I stopped focusing on my health as I started to get my life back. And so I never really finished all of that problem. Now this is where Carnivore comes in. All right. So they discharge me from the hospital. They give me the proton pump inhibitor. I take that pill. I eat a little bit of the food that they provided, which was the first solid food that I'd eaten in like a week. And I realized, oh, a proton pump inhibitor. I've heard of those. Let me look that up. So I'm still in my hospital bed waiting to get discharged. Just swallowed a proton pump inhibitor, and I'm looking at it on my phone going, oh, yeah, this just doesn't sound like a good idea. And the next morning, I woke up with a raging headache that was just pretty much split only onto the left side of my head. And it went all the way down into my shoulder. I am not a headache person. I'll get a hunger headache if I go too long without food. Maybe I'll get a little bit of headache in my eyes if they're strained from, use. But I'm not a migraine kind of pounding headache person. And every other horrible thing that's happened, headaches are not one of them. So I had a really good suspicion that it was that pill, and I never got the script filled. And I just made do with the herbs, and I suffered, and I decided on March 1st, which was the same day I went to the naturopath. I'm like, I have to eat something. I was living on mashed potatoes, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do the carnivore diet. And I started off with scrambled eggs and bacon. And when I ate that scrambled eggs and bacon, Dave, that was the most delicious thing that I had had. And I can't even tell you how many months. And the reason that it was so delicious is because I got the good eggs, and I used one whole egg and 2 additional yolks and threw away the white. And I smothered butter all in them and the bacon grease, and not too much because, again, I'm not fat adapted. But that was the first meal that I'd had in a long time that did not cause me any kind of physical torture or pain going through. Because remember, from tip to tail, I'm inflamed. And that was like, wow, I found a food to eat. I found a food to eat. Started then with hamburger patties as well, and was only able to consume about 1/2 of a hamburger patty at a time. And then maybe the other half later in the day, and maybe 1 scrambled egg. And that was a day. Right. So, I'd already lost crazy amounts of weight between December of 2022 and January of 2023. I dropped 20 pounds instantly, and effortlessly. And that was from being ill. Because remember, I still hadn't started the carnivore diet yet. I didn't start that until March 1st of 2023. So I thought, well, at least by eating carnivore, I have the opportunity to get some rich, dense nutrition. Let me see how my body feels. Let me start stepping into becoming a little bit more fat adapted. And I'm so grateful that I found a few foods that aren't going to hurt me when I consume them. So as the weeks go on, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling stronger. I'm still taking a boatload of supplements from the naturopath, but my strength is returning. Spring is giving way into summer. The days are longer. I'm outside more. I live in a northern climate, so you want to take advantage of the sunshine whenever you get the chance to do that, and I don't always get the chance to do that as much as I would like to. So I'm feeling absolutely freaking fantastic and amazing until I get my cholesterol results back from a blood test in early May. And my naturopathic doctor was not pleased. My cholesterol was like 255 and some other markers were a lot higher. I actually have the data here. Oh, what was it? Yeah, 255. Triglycerides were at 79, HDL 67, VLDL, if I did my math right, which we can't always confirm, 16, and the LDL calculated 170. Okay, yeah, she was freaking out. She was freaking out. So she told me that I should treat meat as a garnish and get more fiber.
Of course, because it's the fiber that's going to fix everything, right?
Yeah. So I took her advice and I really tried to incorporate fiber, and she suggested flaxseed. Wow. I did that for a month, and I'll tell you what, I was really thrown off my game, because any inroads that I had made with getting my digestion under control, which by this time, all right, things aren't perfect, but you know, throwing a dart at the Bristol Meyer, or was that it? The poop chart, you know, just blanked on what it's called, and I had it before, right? See, brain. That started coming back online, but it wasn't enough, because it was only like once a day or once every other day. And the doctor was like, no, not enough. Need more fiber. Got to get everything moving through, you know, because, you know, I also had like a little bit of a fatty liver, but they don't tell you on the scan results how fatty it is. If it's over 5%, it's fatty. So I could be 5.5%, 6%, or, you know, some, but I was never like really a big drinker, but I really do like my sugary high fructose corn syrup drinks, and you know, liver issue kind of runs in the family as well. So this is a great time to get rid of all of that sugar and put all of those bad habits to the wayside. So I tried the fiber thing and it was messing me up, and I was extremely unhappy, extremely bound up, having the exact same problems all over again. And how come I'm getting constipated to the point where I'm going to pass out on the floor?
Didn't they also already diagnose you with diverticulosis?
They
which
did.
The fiber was probably making worse?
Well, here's the thing, Dave. They did diagnose me with that on my first colonoscopy. I believe it was back in 2018, 19. It was 2019. And they recommended at that time 25 grams of fiber per day. Now, I always paid attention to fiber, especially with the Weight Watchers, because fiber was a big thing. I never topped out on that much fiber, Dave. Honestly, I don't know how can someone even consume that amount of fiber. So when I was being discharged, and it was over dinner, and I was meeting with the gastro doctor who was following me in the hospital, and he was reiterating the fiber. He's like, you need to get 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. And I'm like, doc, look at my tray. Look at my hospital tray. It has mashed potatoes that aren't real. It has green beans that are real. There's some tomato sauce. Does that count as fiber? How many grams of fiber are in like a chunk of, like a one bite of tomato? I don't know. And like a meat and rice thing, and a roll. and I think a Jell-O and a coffee. I'm like, dude, is there at least 10 grams of fiber on this tray right now times 3 American meals per day that's going to give me the 30 grams of fiber that you're recommending? I'm like, dude, tell me where the fiber is. And he just looked at me and went, she's one of those. You know? So I started really rethinking the whole need for fiber after that first colonoscopy, because I was already getting as much fiber as I possibly could. So after that particular colonoscopy, my first one, I cut down on the fiber. And so when I had the colonoscopy 2 years later, 19, 20, 20, you know, a few years later, they said, oh, you got pockets of diverticulum. No big deal. Everybody has that. I'm like, well, what about my fatty liver? Oh, don't even worry about that. Everybody has a fatty liver. And I'm like, these are medical doctors in a hospital telling me, don't worry about your fatty liver because everybody has one. And don't worry about gallstones because, we can just rip out your gallbladder, which I narrowly escaped with. And I still have my gallbladder. And that still causes issues from time to time. But I'll tell you what, Dave, it went from every minute of every day to maybe I'll get a twinge once a week if I eat a little bit too much fat. But the naturopath is now working with me on a protocol to try to gently detox the liver and, get that bile moving again and drill down to some of the other things that have not yet been healed with the carnivore diet, because I have underlying issues that are preventing me from stepping up in my healing. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to, come on here this evening and talk to you, is because everyone has these amazing success stories, and I love the success stories, and I have my own success story. Number one, I can eat food. I have some foods that I can eat. Number two, these foods are not torturing me on a minute by minute basis just because I have to live in a human body and digest food in order to keep going. The strength, the muscle building, and one of the reasons, while I was in that hospital bed, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to give this carnivore diet a second look. And my main reason wasn't even because of the gastritis issues. Okay, that's how pea-brained I am sometimes. Wasn't even because of the gastritis issues. It was because of the hiatal hernia. And I was thinking to myself, well, gee, if I get more meat and I get the protein from that meat, then maybe I can strengthen my muscles. And then maybe this hiatal hernia muscle won't pop itself out of place as often if I have, instead of thinking, I guess I was just in such a place of acceptance that my digestion is wrecked and I don't know whatever is going to happen again, but maybe at least I don't have to have this problem. So the day after I got out of the hospital, I ran to my chiropractor and he did an adjustment, and it was awful. And I screamed and almost kicked him. And it was very unpleasant, but it worked. And then I went back 1 month later and I had another adjustment. And just by paying attention to those two adjustments, I figured out, oh, this is what it feels like when it goes out of place. Oh, this is what I can do to get it back into place. And then if I, twist or bend a certain way, I can run back to the chiropractor and he'll fix it. But I didn't even know that there was a chiropractic adjustment for hiatal hernia until I'm like, I got to do something to deal with this discomfort, because there was absolutely nothing to take away that particular misery. All right. So carnivore diet, July. I'm watching Carrie Mann and I made a comment about, yeah, I'd love to eat carnivore, but my doctor is insistent that I have the fiber and is worried about my cholesterol, and I don't know what to do because I feel good. And he responded with one word and a finger. He said, this, this is the problem. This is what we're going through. And I was in such a state of cognitive dissonance, Dave, because I knew how good I felt when I was just eating like beef, butter, bacon, and eggs and taking the supplements and feeling that inflammation calm down, seeing results, feeling results, not out of the woods yet, but on a good trajectory. And then slam, for an entire month. I'm like, I'm going to be a good patient. I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to listen to my doctor instead of my body. And I'm going to eat this fiber. And when I saw that comment with, you know, that Carrie had responded, and it really affected me. And I thought, you know what am I doing? What I'm just not brave enough to step into this space. I'm not brave enough because I was born in 65. I was 15 years old in 1980, which puts me right smack dab in the center of teenage girlhood. And we just want to fit in, and we want to be told what to do so that we're doing the right things, and we want to eat the correct food, and we want to look good. And oh my God, the most important thing of all is you got to be skinny. You know, if you're a teenage girl, at least back whenever I was growing up, it was important. You know, it was kind of our value system. And, you know, looks were important, but what was going on the inside always wasn't. So, yeah, so that's a roundabout way of saying I decided at the end of July, that's it. And I made my first video, and I only have a few there. I've only been documenting about once a month because there's really not a whole lot to say. But I want to be able to look back and see my journey from where I started with my, you know, Carnivore Take 2 restart in July, and remember that my why is I just want that carnivore glow. I want that glow that you see in Dr. Barry when you look at his old videos when he was keto from about 3-4 years ago, about 4 years ago, maybe 5 now. And you look at him now and you see that complete transformation. Same with Dr. Boz when she shows the picture of her face with the slight inflammation and then what she looks like now. And numerous others. Like, I want that. I want the health. I want the vitality. I want the energy. I want to, you know, scale tall buildings with a single bound. I'll settle for taking steps 2 at a time, you know, and being able to lift a 50-pound bag of rock salt so I can save a couple bucks instead of having to buy 2 25-pound bags. Be able to lift a 24 case of water, you know, on one shoulder, like, hey, anybody thirsty? You know, I lost all of that strength, and I really, really want that strength back. So carnivore-ish, what, 8-9 months now since March, but not getting the same results as a male 12 to 15 years younger who also has a lot of health problems, because I have these other underlying issues that I'm just now starting to realize are really keeping me down. And if it weren't for the pure elimination aspect of the carnivore diet, where we're really able to drill down to every single condiment, every single spice, every single additive, and be able to get that reflection for ourselves. If I hadn't have stepped into this carnivore space, I would still be eating a variety of foods, taking a shit ton of supplements, you know, and wondering, why am I not getting better? Why am I not getting better? So that brings me kind of to where I'm at now, but I need to take a break. So I'll let you talk for a sec.
So, you know, that moment in July, that was you, just to clarify, like, that was you kind of saying, why am I listening to other people telling me what's best for me? Why am I not just listening to my body?
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And that's, you know, just to step into psychology a little bit, it's what I do. It's what I've done my whole life. You know, always make other people happy. It's just what you do.
I think that's one big problem with dieting, because everyone's out there saying saying the same thing. If you want to lose weight, cut calories. If you're not losing weight, you need to eat less and move more, and all, you know, it's all the slogans, right? And that's just pummeled into us all our lives and reinforced all our lives. And when you try and do something different and you feel good, you end up feeling bad about it and doubting yourself, because you just think, yeah, but no one else is doing it. What could I be doing to myself?
And I also felt a deep sadness, Dave, like, oh, all these other people get to do this, but I'm not allowed. You know, because it's going to raise my cholesterol and it's going to make my PCP, well, so my primary care physician angry at me, and then it's going to make the naturopath angry at me, and then I'm going to be mad at me because I can't make everybody. I mean, come on, like, I'm getting too old to play that game anymore. So I'm really, you know, of course, I went back to therapy because I was so absolutely bottomed out in March and into April that I was like, I'm never going to get through this journey if I don't go back to therapy. And my therapist is a hypnotist and also uses the Rife technology and Evox, which is an emotional feedback machine. And so there are these other tools available that I've been able to really drill down into my psychology for a couple of reasons. Like, number one, why am I playing these games with myself? I'm a mature woman. I'm a grandma, for goodness sakes. I'm like the family matriarch at this point. Why am I playing these head games with myself at this age? Oh, because I've been well trained to think that way, and I have to break these patterns. And another reason is also to drill down into that mind-body connection and figure out, are there some underlying psychological issues, thought patterns, unconscious belief systems that are stuck in my physiology that are wearing me down. Now, I have to balance this by saying I don't believe that every single illness is caused by a thought form. I don't believe that every single illness is not caused by a thought form. I also believe that it could be one piece of the 1,000-piece puzzle. And since I'm at a point in my life where the goal is to get myself to maximum health, engage more with life, and figure out what I want to do with the second half of it, which is not going to be sitting around for the next 20 years waiting to reach my late 70s and kick it. Like, that's not what I want to do. So I have this opportunity in this pause in my life, for the second time taking a pause in my life to deal with this crazy chronic condition. I will get my life back. I got it back before. I could have done better, but I was in my 20s. I just wanted to live again. You know, now I'm older. There's way more at stake. So I have to do this. All right. So let's get to the better news. All right. So yeah, I bottomed out. I bottomed out in the summer because I had both a dietitian and a doctor, and both of these women I have 100% utmost respect for. So that's another thing we need to consider, is that I really do respect their professional opinion. The only problem is, in giving me food suggestions for low inflammatory foods, and then I eat these low inflammatory foods and I'm not feeling low inflammatory system. And I'm trying to explain, like, but when I eat this, I'm not getting the result. How is this food considered low inflammation when it's killing me every time I eat it? And they don't have an answer. They didn't have an answer. So this frustration was all bubbling up at the same time. And I made my first video and I said, that's it. I'm doing carnivore for a year. It's going to morph. It's not always going to look the same. It doesn't look the same now as what it did over the summer. And it probably won't look the same in the next couple of weeks, because I'm getting ready to start a new protocol and morph entirely into the lion diet and really try to attack the candida overgrowth that I have. And in order for that to work at maximum effectiveness, I have to be like 100% sugar free. And that means I don't even want the sugars that are going to be present in any kind of milk or cheese or yogurt. So right now, my diet consists of yogurt and ribeyes and a couple of berries, because my naturopath said you need the antioxidant for the liver support and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but berries and mold and like, which one is it? Contradictions. All right. But I'm okay with that. And a little bit of honey. And that's putting me way over where I want to be with carbs. But I'm using my diet to slow down the weight loss, because I'm now losing weight at the rate of 1 pound a week, which I'm psychologically comfortable with because of those few years of doing Weight Watchers. Does that make sense? Like that's okay with me. And the idea of losing the weight too quickly feels wrong to me in my body. And that's why, and for many months, I was practically starving with not getting 500 calories of nutrition per day. Now, someone would say, well, gee, you could have eaten if you took the proton pump inhibitor. I'm like, yeah, I could have. However, there's a rebound effect when you get off of a proton pump inhibitor. And I thought, well, if I abate the torture now, I'm going to have to suffer later, and I'm already in suffering. So I might as well just continue, because I kind of got a handle on the suffering, if that makes any sense. So let me ride this out. Let me ride it out. And that was my choice to do that. Saw my naturopath a couple of weeks ago again, Dave, and we had a totally different conversation about the carnivore diet, because she now has a few more clients than what she had in March, who are reporting back to her claiming that they are having good success on the carnivore diet. And I was like, all right. And she told me that one of her, she knows someone else who is also doing nutritional consulting for carnivore diet, which I have not taken advantage of, because what if I'm not able to do what is suggested? I don't want to spend extra money at this point for someone to suggest something that I try and find out, well, that's just not going to work for my particular unique situation. So going back to what you said before, yeah, absolutely. That was the point when I decided I'm going to do this for me. I'm going to listen to my body before I listen to anybody else. And that was also the same time that I decided, kind of like activating that intuition. You need to cut out all of your supplements and get a new baseline, hun. And I was like, I do? Yeah, self, you do. You need to cut out everything and see where you are right now, because you just went through this month of this fiber fest that messed you all up. You might be in better shape than what you really are, but you're not going to know that. And what happens when you have too much of a good thing? It's too much. It turns into a bad thing. And what if I don't need these digestive enzymes anymore? And so I quit everything. I was taking no supplements. Because my system is so sensitive. I knew that something was causing something, and I was able to clear out for a couple of weeks and test each supplement one at a time and figure out, like, oh, I don't need this one. And oh, this nutritional support shake stuff has too much of something in. I'm reacting to something, I don't know what. So even really good, high quality supplements suggested by a naturopathic doctor might not fare well. And so I started doing well when I started activating my intuition and really, really listening to that, following the data. And one of the reasons I started with the yogurt is a stool test showed that I was very low in acidophilus. And I thought, okay, acidophilus. Oh yeah, yogurt. Why did I give up eating yogurt all those years ago? Oh, in a desperate attempt to cut down on my animal consumption. Whereas I really need the acidophilus because it keeps everything in homeostasis.
So this restart of the journey has been since July. Mm-hmm. We're now getting towards the end of the year. Sounds like you're healing. What I'm interested in is, you said that you don't want to get to like your late 70s and I can't remember your exact words, but feeling bad, basically. So, like, what's your outlook now about that?
Yeah. Okay. I think I have a great outlook. Albeit I have some hurdles and some tunnels to go through, but I think it's a great outlook. Um, my weight is now down around 122 to 123 pounds, which I never thought I would see. Uh, People tell me, "Oh, you're so skinny. Don't lose any more weight." But, if you saw my body without clothes on, you wouldn't say that. There's the female belly pouch, which I'm finding out more and more about what could be causing that and keeping that from hanging around. I have not had the energy, and I'm still suffering through exercise aversion. So my doctor ordered some mold testing for me, which I've been doing the prep protocol for, and I'll be collecting that sample tomorrow and sending that in for evaluation. Because I have all of the symptomology. I mean, but it's not bad because, going back to what I did in my 20s straightened me out to a point, but I do live in an old house, and it has old house issues. So I know that my environment has been dragging me down slowly over time. I know that my thyroid issue, because I've only been, I've been on the same dose of levothyroxine, but knowing that the T3 and T4, and I'm just starting to dig into my research on that, and I'm having all of these uh-oh moments, like, oh no, oh, what did I do? So again, with the severe gastritis, I did not have headspace to deal with that. And now that I'm able to rest and digest, and we kind of have a handle on that, we're in the phase 2 of the detox that the naturopath is guiding me through. So I know that eventually those gallstones are going to be gone. My liver's going to be perfect. My digestion is going to be working 100%. I know that I'm going to have the energy of someone 20 years younger than me. And I know I'm going to get back down to my high school weight. And I know I'm going to get tone and buff, and I'm going to feel fantastic. I know I've got about another year, or give or take, maybe a little longer, to really move through what I need to do with getting the candida out of my body, and everything else that I've already mentioned. And although I'm retired from the school district, I opted to retire early because of my health. And but I still consider myself not really retired. I'm on early retirement and tapping my piggy bank, and so that's keeping me going. But I'm really considering myself somewhat between careers. And right now what I'm doing is I'm fixing my mind, I'm fixing my body, my soul, my houses, my relationships with myself and with others. So that's what I'm doing with my life right now. So I think my outlook is pretty good, but I am a wee bit nervous about the upcoming months and the data collection that I'm about to step into, because, if the tests come out the way I think they will, I'm going to have some major decisions to make. And yeah, not sure about that. I'm not living in a toxic mold environment where like the walls are sweating or anything. I'm in an old house with old house problems, and there's some dampness, and there's probably some things lurking. And it's just enough to be insidious enough to cause a slow deterioration over time. And I've been living in this house since 2015, but I bought the property in 2006. And both houses were built at the same time. My daughter's in the front house. So yeah, rehab, moving, throw all my camping stuff in my Subaru, and try to find a place that's not moldy to hang out for a few months. I don't know what I'm going to do. Try to make more videos.
It's positive that you can, kind of feel like there are options, though. That's the good thing. I think one of the things that causes the most kind of stress and stuff in life is when you get to a point where you feel there are no options. It's you get that feeling of hopelessness and stuff when you know, okay, well there is light at the end of the tunnel. I've just got to choose which direction to go to get to that light. Then you can be in a much it's a much better place to be in.
I'm in a much better place than I was a year ago. About this time last year is when I bottomed out and really didn't come out of it. And so for that, I am just incredibly grateful for all of the doctors and all of the people who are putting their journeys and stories out there in carnivore land. You know, it's been amazing. And please, those of you who, you know, maybe you're doing what I did for the longest time. Oops, I don't like that light. That's too much. Okay. I'm either too dark or too light. I can't, I don't know what happened. My light went out. But I learned so much, Dave, just from reading people's comments. You know, the comments that everyone shares. I did this. I used this herb. You know, I ate this food this way. I adjusted this. I adjusted that. Or, oh, I have the same health problem. I've learned so much from reading YouTube comments. I've learned as much from commenters as I have from watching people who post videos or watching doctors who are really doing their darndest to educate us.
Yeah. So actually on that point on YouTube, can you talk a little bit about your channel, please?
Well, I should have started my channel March 1st when I decided to go carnivore because I was really at my lowest. But yeah, I didn't have the nerve yet. I didn't have the gall, I guess, because my gallbladder was all full. I didn't have enough gall and I didn't do it. And so I started it in July, and I think I have like 4 videos there. And I'll probably do one tomorrow to update you know, what's been going on recently in the past month. My channel name has absolutely nothing to do with carnivore. My channel name is Agreeable Gray. 2 words, capital A, capital G. It's kind of an inside joke. It's actually a Sherwin-Williams paint color. And due to that little private inside joke, I decided, well, that would be a really fun moniker to use for bopping around YouTube. And basically, you know, it's just me giving updates of what I'm doing for my own record so I can look back at my journey a few years from now and see where I've come. Will I grow it any more than that? I don't know. Maybe. That would be okay. But I got to get my head out of my rear first. And that's where the mold and mycotoxin testing comes in so that I can get that brain power back, you know. And I know that's a thing because I feel so good in the summer, and then I feel pretty good and I get a decent burst of energy through the winter because everything's all frozen, you know, and until it thaws. So spring and fall are little bit difficult. But yeah, Agreeable Gray. Check me out. If you have any questions, if you want to start a conversation, just pick a video. I don't really have many subscribers, like 2. You know? But I'd love to talk to you, especially if you're suffering from the mold thing or mycotoxins or multiple chemical sensitivities. I got so lucky to have been able to get my life back when I did, Dave, with that crazy therapy. But I just don't know if that exists any longer or where it does. So carnivore is the next best thing because at least you are denying your body the extra toxins that it doesn't need in the first place. And so those of us with precarious health, this is just the best diet. And if it weren't for this diet, well, number one, I wouldn't be talking to you, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel, and I probably wouldn't even be digesting food yet. So it's all good.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, for coming on and for sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Dave, for sending the word out and having me on. I've really enjoyed this, and thanks for letting me ramble on and on. It was great.